Thank you, Diane, for what you and your colleagues are doing with Koinonia. And what you have done in the last 40 years represents something that is quite unique to this country. 180 years ago, in the 1830s, a Frenchman, an aristocrat, Alexis de Tocqueville, visited the United States, wrote a book, American Democracy, which is still read in some universities these days. And one of the things that struck him about this new country, this new republic, was what he called voluntary associations, people coming together for a shared purpose. And he'd never seen anything like it in Europe, where with its medieval past, feudalistic past, you waited for somebody to give you permission. You waited for somebody to tell you what to do. In this country, if people saw a need, a challenge, an opportunity, they came together and just did it in a whole variety of areas. And what he said was that this went beyond immediate family, community, job. This was something of what is now called civil life. As I mentioned, he'd never seen something like that before, and he said, this is how you develop people to be members, citizens of a republic. People coming together and making things happen in a whole variety of ways. Not waiting for on top to do it, just going out and doing it and making it happen. And you see the evidence of it here. Today, we're discussing how, with people with developmental disabilities, how to get them more involved in the workforce. Three things are obviously involved, three keys. Bill discussed some of them, but one of the keys, of course, is awareness, which all of you are involved in. It goes back a number of years, the 1990 American with Disabilities Act, and other initiatives to make these things happen, make awareness out there. Obviously, it helps too when you get breakthroughs in technology, breakthroughs in medicine, finding new ways to train people. A very, very interesting suggestion from Dr. LaFayette about self-employment. Thanks to high technology, literally, you have the whole world at your fingertips. So the opportunities are absolutely multitudinous. You could be here and have a multinational business. It's amazing. A few keystrokes, and you can do it. And of course, a vibrant economy. While people of my age, they call our generation, my generation, baby boomers, and as I get older, I love that word, baby boomer, yes, say it again. But, yes, some of you get that. But the key thing is, right now, because of a sluggish economy, because we haven't had the normal bounce back that you get when you have a sharp downturn, labor participation rate has fallen. But I don't think it's just demographic, as suggested by the two Federal Reserve banks, Cleveland and Atlanta. It's also just sheer discouragement. And you see it in median incomes, still lower than they were 6 years ago, barely moving upwards. And you see it too in people having to do part-time jobs. The Wall Street Journal had a headline on it the other day. Part-time work, full-time bills, which kind of sums up why people, even though we're supposedly 6 years into a recovery, people feel we're in a semi-recession. It's like a flu, not enough to put you in bed, but you certainly don't feel good about it. So in terms of awareness, what happened in 1990 and since, that will continue. What you're doing here, that will continue. More and more programs, pilot programs and the like, so that will move forward. In the terms of technology, the breakthroughs there are enormous. Just yesterday, I saw a demonstration of an exoskeleton developed by Parker Hannifin with Vanderbilt University. They're going to be having it available in Europe next year. This country, thanks to the bureaucratic procedures of the FDA, it'll take a little longer, but literally paraplegics. We saw a demonstration of it with a man who was paralyzed from a motorcycle accident, was able to take a device, put it on himself, piece by piece, and literally get out of that chair and walk, even though he had no feeling below his waist. Remarkable things are happening. And that's going to happen more and more thanks to technology. So in terms of people who we think have developmental disabilities, the ability to find ways to make sure that those things become less of an obstacle as they were in the past, that is not Pollyannish. That is actually underway. Breakthroughs in terms of medical cures using the body's immune system also holds huge promise in the future, with illnesses that we thought were lifelong, maybe now can be dealt with. On this exoskeleton, I asked, well, this young man, motorcycle accident in his 20s, what about somebody in their 50s, 60s? They said, no problem. They're going to be able to advance this kind of technology to people who've had strokes. Doesn't matter your age. If you have some upper body ability, eventually you'll be able to move again. And they described what happens when a family sees somebody who they thought was going to be in a wheelchair forever get up and learn to walk again. It also means the immune system is not going to deteriorate. The muscles aren't going to deteriorate. The bones aren't going to deteriorate as normally would happen. So great things are breakthroughs are there. The key thing is to have an environment where the resources are there. And this touches on economics, the whole thing about economics. Dr. LaFayette would appreciate, since this is his life work. George Gilder, the great technologist, talked about what is economics, what is progress? And he asked the question, what is the difference between us today and people in the Stone Age? Same physical appetites, same human body, living on the same planet. The difference between us and them is very simple. Today, we know more. We have more knowledge. Even if physical things are destroyed, if knowledge is not destroyed, you can quickly rebuild and move forward. We saw that after World War II. Absolute devastation in Europe and Japan. Tens of millions of lives lost, including many capable young people. Yet in a few years, they had exceeded their pre-war production levels. Yes, the US had provided security, breaking down trade barriers and the like, but the key thing was knowledge was not destroyed. And the key thing to creating knowledge is experimentation, research, not only learning what we already been created, but then taking it onward. And you don't have failures in this kind of environment. Business may fail, an experiment may fail, but you learn from it. You learn what doesn't work. Peter Thiel, the noted entrepreneur, PayPal and other great breakthroughs, noted in his new book, most of his investments have been failures. But it doesn't mean he throws money indiscriminately. He tries to gauge things, but most of the time it's not going to work the way it should. At Apple, they had a reunion from people who had developed the Newton. None of you may be old enough to remember the 1980s. Yeah, that's called pandering. Tried it in politics, didn't work, which is why I'm in snowy Cleveland today. But this device, a failure, but it was ahead of its time. Eventually, those set the foundations and developed the technologies that became eventually the iPod and the iPhone and the iPad, what our publisher calls noble failures. So it's knowledge, experimentation, and you don't know until you go out and actually try the thing. Constant of evolution, constant learning. So in terms of breakthrough, think of the microchip, which is extending the reach of the human brain the way machines extended the reach of human muscle. And the thing about it is we think of high technologies, highfalutin stuff beyond the comprehension of most of us human beings. But it isn't. It brings knowledge right to our fingertips. It makes it easy. This is where self-employment has a real opportunity. It makes it easy to access things. I'm old enough to remember a thing called card catalogs in libraries. Remember those, some of you? Learn how to Dewey Decimals, the whole rigmarole. Today, kids don't realize what a miracle it is. You go on an iPad, even technology illiterate people like me, hit the thing. Things happen. You go to Google, literally, like a lamp from somebody from space. Make a wish. Just type it in, and it comes up. Search engine would normally take hours. Boom, you can start roaming the internet, finding more and more. Makes research infinitely easier. So in terms of so-called developmental disabilities, yes, they are real, but with the kind of mentoring, kind of desire, these obstacles can be overcome. And things that would have seemed fantastic a few years ago can become everyday realities. And human nature being what it is, we become quickly spoiled by it. You take a handheld device. Oh, it's taking me 10 seconds to reach outer Mongolia. What a piece of crap, you know. What's happening here? So in terms of what's happening, in terms of things like the exoskeleton, in terms of what's happening, in terms of using our own immune systems, in terms of happening in devices, in terms of technology, making it easy to have the whole world come to you, and you having access to the whole world, it's an exciting time, not a time of despair. Now this then gets, what about creating the environment? And the key thing is, in terms of pushing this thing forward, is to have the kind of economy where you have a vibrant demand for work, vibrant demand for labor, where people figure out, well, I never thought of trying to get somebody with developmental disabilities before, but got to figure something out. That is a real driver. That is the ultimate persuader. That is the ultimate persuader, as Dr. LaFayette made clear. So how do we get that kind of environment? Why are we still stuck in second gear? We're like a baseball player. The season's just ended. We won the batting crown in terms of the global economy among developed countries. But we're hitting the baseball equivalent of 250 instead of 350. 250 is not very good, but everyone else is even lower than that. What is going on? What is holding us back? I think there are three things, and I'll make this quick, that are holding us back. But the good news is they're going to be dealt with. We're in the so-called new normal, where we have higher unemployment, or if the unemployment rate comes down, it's because the labor force participation rate is going down. People leaving the workforce. So-called new normal, subpar growth, 2%. For this country, to use a French word, that sucks. You know, we should be doing much better than that. And historically, we have done much better than that. So what is holding us back? This is the new, it's not the new normal, it's the new abnormal. It's not gonna last. Now, one of the things that's holding us back, and this may be a bit controversial, that's why I made sure I ate my dessert before they could take it away from me, before I came up here. But one of the things that's holding us back is truly one of the most boring subjects in the world: monetary policy. When you say monetary policy, Dr. LaFayette started to mention the Fed, Federal Reserve banks, Federal Reserve Board, foreign exchange rates, interest rates, quantitative easing. I mean, people know it's important, but the eyes start to glaze over. So let me give you a reward in advance for what I'm about to do to you now. And that is, especially in a day like this, to give you a travel tip. If you ever find yourself in an airplane, in coach, middle seat, on the runway, watching your life pass away, you want a little bit of elbow room with your seatmates, especially some of these small planes they put you in now, want a little bit of elbow room? Start talking to them about monetary policy. Cut you a wide berth. Or if any of you are single or have kids who are single, on a bad date and want out, talk about monetary policy and the evening will be over and you'll never see that person again. But the whole subject of money is basic and simple. Money, how do we get progress in this world? We do transactions with each other, billions of them each day. Each as a person with disabilities or no disabilities, of visible disabilities. We can't do everything ourselves. And those who try spin their wheels and frustrate themselves. Do constant trading. You want to bake a cake, you got to trade to get the ingredients. So that's why money was invented, to make buying and selling easier. In the old days, we had barter before we had money. If I'd sold an ad in Forbes 3,000 years ago, how would I get paid? Perhaps with a herd of goats. Let's say I wanted to buy iPads for our writers, being a little facetious here. Go to the Apple store with a herd of goats. Store owner says, no, I don't want goats, I want sheep. So I have to figure out how to swap the goats for sheep. May have to hire a sheep herder to make sure the wolves don't eat the sheep. Sheep herder wants wine. I have red wine, he wants white wine. Very, very inefficient. Imagine we've still had barter today. Imagine trying to deposit a chicken or a cow in an ATM. Just would be very, very cumbersome. Very, very cumbersome. So in terms of moving ahead, one of the key things is today, money works best. Money works best when it has a fixed value. Imagine what your life would be like. Imagine what your life would be like if our central bank, the Federal Reserve, and there's some very nice people, some of my best friends are members of the Federal Reserve, so it's nothing personal. But imagine if the Fed did to clocks what it does to the dollar. Float the clock. 60 minutes an hour one day, 48 minutes the next, 30 minutes the day after, 90 minutes the day after that. You'd soon have to have hedges, derivatives, futures to figure out how many hours you're working. Let's say you're baking that cake. Recipe says bake the batter 40 minutes. Now, is that nominal minutes? Inflation adjusted minutes? Is it a Cleveland minute? An Indianapolis minute? A Mexican minute? It just makes life, that's why they have fixed measures. Fixed weights and measures. You go to the store, buy a pound of cheese, you assume it's 16 ounces, not 13, not 18, doesn't float each day. So we've mucked around with the money. Doesn't have a fixed value anymore. And so a lot of brain power gets wasted. Get less investment in the future. Once upon a time when we had fixed exchange rates, you didn't have much currency trading. Why? Because they're fixed to each other. Today, currency trading, just saw a number, over $4 trillion a day in volume, trading currencies. Tens of thousands of the best brains in the world focused on currency trading. How dumb is that? I'd love to get Chris's take on that. Really, a waste of brain. Imagine that brain power had been applied to new products and services, medical breakthroughs. Wouldn't that make life a lot better? Wouldn't those lives be better spent instead of currency trading? So in terms of money, you got to get a stable value for the money. Now, this is highly controversial, and poor Dr. LaFayette will be gagging over there, but so be it. But I eventually think we're going to have to get a system that we had before the 70s or something like it, where you have it fixed to a commodity like gold. It's like a ruler, fixed. Doesn't restrict the amount of money you create in an economy. That's done by what you do in the marketplace. But get some stability. We did it for 180 years. Now, Paul Volcker, the former head of the Fed, said the other day that since we went off what they called the Bretton Woods system, we've had more currency crisis, more economic crises, banking crises. He said we got to do something better. Now, he didn't even touch GOLD, but the beginning of wisdom in determining we got to do something better, and we do, begins with saying what we're doing now is not working. Take quantitative easing, which supposedly was going to goose the economy. In basketball, if you had a record like the Fed's had, you'd had a lot more new coaches. And but I'm staying away from the Cavs for a moment, but they will come back. The season is young. It's a long season. But anyway, we got to find new and better ways than what we're doing now. Get a little more stability. And beginning of the wisdom is what Volcker said, we got to find a better way. And as we do, and people start to invest again, you'll start to see this economy come back. Two other things that are holding us back. Another one is taxes. The thing our authorities sometimes don't recognize is taxes just don't raise revenue, they're also a price and a burden. Tax on profit, price you pay for success. Tax on income, the price you pay for working. Tax on capital gains, price you pay for taking risks that work out. And the idea is a very simple one. When you lower the price, productive things like risk-taking, productive work and success, you get more of them. We need to create more resources. And so this idea we should raise taxes, no, we should simplify taxes. Talk about wasted brain power. Put it in perspective, our federal income tax code. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address characterized the American nation, 272 words. Declaration of Independence, hugely important document, 1,300 words. Constitution, all the amendments, 7,200 words. Bible, took centuries to put that together, 773,000 words. Now the federal income tax code and all the attendant rules and regulations, not just the code itself, but all the junk that goes with it, 9 million words and rising. Nobody knows what's in it. The IRS doesn't know. You call their hotline, a third of the time they give you the wrong answer, but hold you responsible for it. You don't have to go, especially in weather like this, you don't have to go to the Amazon to find exotic creatures. Just start thumbing through the code. It's all there. And Money Magazine, several years ago, did a survey. They took a hypothetical family's finances, gave the numbers to 46 different tax preparers, people considered expert in the field. And you know what they got back? 46 different returns, 46 different estimates, thousands of dollars of difference. This from people who make their living at the thing. So fortunately, I think we're going to get finally some relief. Several years ago, President Obama appointed a commission to study our fiscal problems. Nothing came of it. It was called Simpson-Bowles. And Democrats and Republicans agreed on the concept that if we start to take some of the junk out of the code, we can lower tax rates across the board. Now, they didn't go as far as I would like, but the consensus is growing, especially on the business side. The White House cooperates. Next year, you could start to get a real reform on the business side. And then after 2016, I think you'll get the reform on the personal side. When you look at this monstrosity, and everyone knows this is a horror, it brings out the worst in us. Half the lobbying in Washington revolves around the tax code. If you just take this beast, kill it, drive a stake through its heart, bury it, and hope it never rises again, just start all over again with something people can actually understand, like a flat tax, single page, or a few keystrokes. So the IRS estimated last year we spent 6 billion hours filling out tax forms. For what purpose? Wasted. Again, all this brain power on something wasted, instead of allowing us to focus on real things. So on the tax front, I think some real relief is coming. We'll start to get this economy moving, which means more resources, which means more opportunity for everybody. Everybody, not just some of us. And another thing relates very closely to what all of you are involved with is medical care, health care. We all know Obamacare's in the news. Where are we going to go? Is this going to be repealed? That going to be repealed? Big, big stuff. We're actually beginning to evolve a new system. We're not going to go back to what we had before. We're not going to have what the president envisioned. It's going to be a new one where patients are actually going to be in charge in terms of resources. Ask yourselves, why do we have a health care crisis? Not quality. Overall in this country, we have the best in the world. Best in the world overall. Problem is, then ask yourselves, so what's the problem? Problem is, we're told people like me are getting older. We want more medical services, becomes expensive, then goes crazy. But ask yourselves, why is demand for medical care considered a problem, growing demand, when demand for everything else is considered a great opportunity? If people want more apps, a lot of writers glad to help you out. People want more cars, Detroit and other manufacturers glad to help you out. So what's with healthcare? Why is healthcare considered a disaster and everything else great opportunity for entrepreneurs? The answer is we don't have real free markets in healthcare. We have pieces of it, but it's not a real free market because we've grown up with it. We don't realize how strange it is. You go to the hospital or the clinic and you ask in advance what it costs, you get a very strange look. It means one of two things. Either you're uninsured or you're crazy. Why would you want to know what it costs? Think of how strange that is. Let's say tonight you go out for dinner, order a nice bottle of wine, say, I don't care what it costs, let Aetna or Medicare, let them sort the thing out. So the system goes crazy. But it's starting to change. It's going to be very messy. It's going to be very turbulent in the next 3 years. We're going to start to get a system more like what we do with food. Food's more basic than healthcare. You don't have food, you don't have anything. And yet, we don't have the government run farms. If government ran farms, we'd have no more obesity. We'd all be starving. They tried in Russia and China, did not work out very well. So why can't we do in healthcare what we do with food? You know, farmers grow the food. Yes, government has some involvement, but agriculture produces food, companies process the food, trucks and others deliver the food. Everything from grocery stores, supermarkets, hotels, clubs sell the food. People have a problem getting food. We have everything from food banks to food stamps to deal with it. Why in the world can't we get the same thing in healthcare? Open it up to more entrepreneurship. Have more effective safety nets than we've said of the hodgepodge system we have today, where it's so uncertain. Where insurance, they may cover your filling, but if you have something long-lasting or a severe disease, it can destroy you, even if you have the insurance. It's a crazy system. No one could have designed it. If they tried, they wouldn't have dared come up with something like this. So that's going to begin to change. You see little signs of it. Changing the delivery system. For example, you see more walk-in clinics where you have a nurse practitioner. Research shows that 80% of our maladies can be covered by a nurse or a technician. And if you need a full-fledged physician, then you go to the hospital to get what you need. And I just saw a little piece of machinery yesterday. Looks like a little hut, plastic thing. Health Spot it's called. Where you go in, fraction of what it costs today. Go in and you can get treated. Amazing stuff is coming. One other example on that. We did a cover story on her, a woman named Elizabeth Holmes. Now the richest, she's dropped out of Stanford. Now she's the richest self-made woman in the world. She wanted to become a doctor, physician, but had a phobia about needles. Well, a little bit of an obstacle there. So instead she worked on developing a new blood test where you do a little thing on your finger, barely feel it, instead of all the needles going in, barely feel it, and the equipment has been developed where they can do massive blood testing with just that little prick and it's done. Amazing. So big things, positive things are coming. Another example, flu shots. You know, once upon a time you wanted a flu shot, you called the clinic or the doctor, made an appointment, went and got the flu shot. Today, they're everywhere. You go to the drugstore, go to the airport, go to the gas station, say, fill her up, give me a flu shot, do the windshield while you're at it. They're everywhere, everywhere. And you see it in things like LASIK surgery for the eyes. Costs half of what it did 10 years ago. Why? Because you don't have that disconnect between providers and consumers. And so our publisher, Rich Karlgaard, mentioned that he did this 12 years ago, cost him $5,000. He said, I can get it for half the price today. Probably an even better result. Why? Because since you don't have that third party in the way, what you have is the provider has every incentive to make it more affordable to you, more attractive to you. You see it in other areas. So big things are coming on the healthcare side, which is good news for what you're trying to do here. Excellent news. And so you put it together. Right now, we still got a sluggish economy. A little better, but not what it should be. But in terms of technology, in terms of awareness, which is growing, your days are about to really, really come. Where people with developmental disabilities, it'll be seen as an obstacle, but seen as a challenge that can be overcome. And whether you're doing it here, using your self-employed technology, or wherever, company, commuting, whatever. People are the real source of wealth. The knowledge is the real source of wealth. As we learn more, we're going to discover no one need be held behind. You'll have the opportunity to get ahead, even if life has dealt you some rough cards at the beginning. We'll find out how to shred those cards, allow you to live the full life you deserve and that God meant for you. Thank you very much.